is 5:30. We will call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Gurrola.
Present.
Councilmember Peñalosa. Councilmember Stowe.
Present.
Vice Mayor Reyes.
Present.
Mayor Flores.
Present. Okay, we will now go into oral communications. This is the opportunity to address the city council on any matter scheduled for closed session. Unless additional time is authorized by the council, all commentary shall be limited to 3 minutes. Seeing that there are none in the audience and we don't have any that have been sent in, we will now move into city closed session.
Thank you, Your Honor. There are 4 items before council in closed session. The first, pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.95, liability claim, claimant Ramon Altamirano Figueroa, Ana Rodriguez Moreno, Ramon Phoenix Figueroa, Amelia Clementine Figueroa. Item 2, Government Code Section 54956.95, liability claim, claimant John Jones and Sandra Jones, agency claimed against City of Porterville. Item 3, Government Code Section 54956.9, subsection D, subsection 3, comes to legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation, 4 cases in which facts are not yet known to potential plaintiffs. And item 4, Government Code Section 54956.9, subsection D, subsection 4, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, initiation of litigation, 1 case.
Thank you. 5:31, we will now go into closed session. It is 6:30. We will reconvene open session and report on reportable action taken in closed session.
Thank you, Mayor. We do have a couple items to report on items A1 and A2, claims by the Joneses and the Figueroas on a motion by Mayor Flores, is seconded by Vice Mayor Reyes, and a 5-0 vote. Those were denied. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's please stand for a pledge of allegiance led by Councilmember Gurrola, and remain standing for an invocation or a moment of silence.
Stand, salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is there anyone that would like to do an invocation? If not, please join me for a moment of silence for your personal intentions, and thankful and grateful to the firefighters that have just returned. Thank you. You may be seated. We will now go into the AB 1234 reports. This is the time for all AB 1234 reports required pursuant to Government Code 53232.3. The first one is the Tulare County Association of Governments. I carried that one over from the last meeting. We met on August the 17th. The meeting was held at the Board of Supervisors in Visalia. Mr. John Lawless and I participated via teleconference. The items of action: the transportation consent calendar included one action item, the adoption of resolution to approve the 2020-21 Senate Bill 1, the State of Good Repair project list. Because the project list was not sent, this item will be a carryover to the next meeting. Informational were on the consent, the Senate Bill 1, the competitive programs update, and the implementation of federally funded projects. The transportation action items were the adoption of two resolutions to reaffirm county unmet transit needs definition and criteria, and to reaffirm the CARES Act funding allocation. The association consent calendar were the approval of minutes for June 22nd, the TCAG board meeting, and the minutes of June 18th for the Technical Advisory Committee meeting. They were approved in addition to the adoption of resolution to approve amendment number 1 to the 2020-2021 overall work plan. There were numerous items of information, but there is one I will highlight. That is the legislative update. TCAG did not prepare a one-voice trip in 2020 due to the government shutdowns that resulted from the coronavirus pandemic. TCAG continues to work with partners in Washington, D.C. to advance their legislative agenda and obtain support for the project funding. Brought forth for consideration of a federal platform that advocates for the projects and legislative and regulatory principles. The list is lengthy, and it included the projects, the surface transportation reauthorization principles such as Highway Trust Fund program design. The third one were the metropolitan planning organizations. The fourth were the regulatory process such as codifying the one federal policy, air quality, and water supply. As the Tulare County Transportation Authority consent calendar action items of June 22 were the authority meeting and minutes of the June 18th Technical Advisory Committee, and approved the Citizens Oversight Committee appointments. The adoption of the two resolutions were to approve the Measure R Expenditure Plan Amendment number 5 and selection of a sales tax audit and management service. There were no updates from Caltrans for this area. Our next meeting is September the 21st, and that concludes the report for the Tulare County Association of Governments. The next one is the Tulare County Task Force on Homelessness. It pleases me to say that Claudia Calderon, who was the alternate, attended the meeting and have provided the minutes. The meeting minutes were from June 24th, and they were approved. Update was given on Project Home Key. A 10-year master lease agreement was signed with Cahuilla Management for permanent housing, a total of 57 units. The location of hotel is 99 Palms at Avenue 266 and Highway 99. The units will be rehabbed, 10 at a time, to be used for permanent housing similar to studios. Initially, it will serve to move over all the Project Room Key participants. As rooms are rehabbed, they will become permanent housing for permanent supportive housing vouchers, mainstream voucher program, and Section 8. Okay. About 40% will be double occupancy. There will be 24-hour security on site. Wraparound services like food, transportation, and case management will be available in the daytime. Currently, the street medicine program is part of the Project Room Key, and it will have regular rotation at this location. Turning Point of Central California is contracted to provide case management services. The site is isolated and not walkable, therefore a need. They will need to work out is the expansion of transportation services to and from the location. They are working to expand their dial-a-ride services. However, since this project would bring individuals from all over the county, a coordinated approach would be more appropriate. They mentioned bringing it back to each jurisdiction, transportation authority. The Kings Tulare Homeless Alliance is hired a housing navigator specifically for Project Home Key to help people obtain permanent housing. They secured an extension through December 2020 for the Lamplighter Inn for Project Room Key. A question was asked about the number of COVID-19 positive cases in Project Room Key, and the county responded that less than 12 cases since the beginning of the program have been seen in the project. A question was asked on the total number of participants that have been housed since the inception of Project Room Key, and the county estimated 130, and they would find the actual number and report out at the next meeting. Items they want to discuss at future meeting agenda is the PIT survey results, the point in time, the strategic plan update and how it is moving forward, the roundtable on shelter updates by each city. That concludes that report, and it is appreciated that Claudia Calderon, who was able to attend the meeting. We will now move on to the San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District Governing Board. Councilmember Reyes, Vice Mayor Reyes.
Thank you, Mayor. On August 20th, the San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District Governing Board held its meeting. One of the first things that we did was to welcome aboard a new member, Dr. Tanya Pacheco Warner, who is the governor's appointee. There are two governor's appointees on the board, so we're glad to fill that vacancy and look forward to working with her. We met her at least I met her virtually, and hope to spend some time in person finding more about her background. We also authorized the agreements that keep the Valley Clean Air Now implementation going for the Drive Clean and the San Joaquin Vehicle Replacement Program. As some of you may know, that's a valuable program to allow residents of the San Joaquin Valley to repair their cars that are either on the edge of being able to be repaired for smog or to be replaced somehow, but this continues the agreements and the funding to allow that $500 stipend to fix your car should the car not pass smog, which is valuable, especially in these times, and they have gone virtual with it, so you can go online and still apply for those funds. We also authorized the purchase of the air monitoring assets and a new stipend for residents who will be participating in the program to support AB 617, which is a community-level air quality monitoring program that's been set forth for implementation. So look for that to be discussed in the near future, but as those assets are purchased and the folks are put in place, we'll find out more information at a community level about what our air quality is like. We have the RAN program now, so you can go on the website and download an app to see what the air quality is, but this will allow for a little bit more specific information. Also, it wasn't an action item, but we discussed the impact of the commercial under-fire charbroiling strategy that the district has been working on. Because of COVID, a lot of the work that's been put into this is on hold, and by that, some of the restaurants, fast food restaurants, and those that use the varying types of under-fired charbroiled grills, a lot of the hamburger places, Habit Burger is one, and I believe Carl's Jr. is another. But there was some controls being put on to diminish the pollution that was created from the fat content that burns, and it was cost prohibitive to do it even before COVID. But now with COVID and the high demand that those restaurants are being placed in, as some of the fewer suppliers of food and drive-through food for that families get, the district chose to suspend some of its activities with regard to the restrictions while looking at keeping those businesses active so that post-COVID, or at least when there's a little bit of a relief, we can look at how we can best implement those controls, and even looking at whether cities should, for the purposes of development, look at as a new restaurant comes in that uses this technology in the preparation of food, whether it should be something that's incentivized for them to use the filtration systems or some other method to control the pollution. So we'll be discussing that further in the future. And that's all for the main action items of the meeting.
Thank you. If there are no questions, we'll move on to the ad hoc committee, the provision of local water services. Councilmember Garola?
This was the coverage for the debt service. We had the staff members from Bandus, Tallman there, and excuse me, and along with the staff, along with city staff, Councilmember Penalosa, City Manager John Lawless, and myself were present. So if they wish to chime in at any time, I'd be happy to have them do that. First of all, one of the items that was covered with us was the debt service capacity for the city of Porterville. At the time of the meeting on August the 20th, it was 32,399,000. And we were looking at 28 million as of then. I understand there's been an update that with our cash availability and our financial standing, that we are actually eligible for up to 39 million now. There's not been any real discussion whether we're going to change the 28 million. But when I heard that, I felt like the city of Porterville has done very well in maintaining its financial standing. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to garner that kind of debt capacity. The discussions that took place that day were regarding some of the projects that the city wants to move forward on. The tertiary treatment plant, the basin, the 40 acres out by the sports complex, along with other water possibilities. Creating a nexus between water and sewage, which I believe there's clearly one now when you have a tertiary treatment plant and you're able to change that water into usable water for our parks, schools, and other large public facilities, and be able to then use the water that would have been used on that to provide for our residents and for growth. So I think the tertiary treatment plant is really going to benefit us in so many ways, and I believe the staff was very interested and surprised at the plans that we have, but we do have a 5-year window in order to complete some of those projects. I'm going to ask Councilmember Penalosa if he'd like to add anything else.
Thank you, Councilwoman Gurrola. Yeah, I'll just share some of my comments in regards to the meeting. I think it's extremely exciting for us as a city to move forward with availability of having this much, capacity to get to get a bond and to work on these projects. I mean, they're extremely. I mean, we're at I believe we're probably ahead of a lot of cities in the San Joaquin Valley in terms of what we're thinking of utilizing these funds for, and I think other cities will look towards us in the future, how this unfolds and what we learn and the challenges we're going to encounter. But I think it's more than anything, I think it's I appreciate the staff and the city manager for working on this and making this putting in our forefront and making sure that we're taking advantage of the opportunities that we have with this, with the current time being. And something that I know that Councilwoman Gurrola has emphasized, and I'll re-emphasize as well, is the fact that the interest rates are extremely low. And this is a perfect opportunity for us to really fund these two major projects, the tertiary treatment, recycled water facility, as well as the water recharge retention basins. Especially, I know this is all part of, I think it's part of Sigma as well. It's a direction that we're moving forward, the way that water is managed. And so these will provide us with a lot of more water that we are able to use and to leverage across here in the city and outside of the city as well. So I know we have a meeting this month, so we're going to continue the conversations and hopefully bring back something to council sometime in October.
Wanted to reemphasize what Councilmember Penalosa said, and that's the low interest rate, which is an incredible opportunity for the city of Porterville because of the amount of capacity that we can borrow. Not that we want to fully extend ourselves that much. We want to be conservative when we look at what we're doing. But there will be a meeting on the 22nd. It's hopeful that we bring it back to the council for action on their agenda for October the 20th. And as more information is gathered, then that will also be presented as well. I do want to also extend a thank you to staff, Mike Knight, Javier, and all those who have worked on these projects. It takes an incredible amount of time. And just hearing the projects that they're putting forth, I have to agree with the council member that this really puts Porterville in the forefront in so many ways. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Lawless, who can probably provide a little bit more detail.
Actually, both of you did a great job in surmising that we are looking at something in the mid 30 million. You're not going to want to bond to your capacity, but you want to have realistic projects that you can complete and have the necessary funds to be able to do that. Tertiary treatment facility is obviously an important component of that. There is a subtlety to that facility that we're working through, which is the tribe's participation and whether that prompts that their participation would prompt a certain series to be a taxable issue as opposed to non-tax exempt. But those are just some of the subtleties that are needing to be worked through. It's a fairly quick process once you get to sale and drafting of what's called the POS, which talks about what the project is and the projects that will be funded through the scope of financing. So we will be meeting again as the ad hoc committee on September 22nd, targeting October 20th council meeting for authorization for sale, and looking to have that done by the 1st of November.
Thank you very much. It just seems like yesterday in 2016, we were talking about the Sustainability Groundwater Management Act, and then now we're talking about the GSAs and moving on with a lot of different components. But thank you very much for that report. All right, we will now go on to the ad hoc committee, the COVID-19 response. Vice Mayor Reyes.
Thank you, Mayor. On the 24th, Councilmember Garola and I, along with staff, met to discuss and finalize the guidelines and permit process and application for outdoor dining for the downtown area. As you recall, there was some interest in trying to do that, as we had discussed in a previous council meeting. I'd like to thank the staff, and I'm sure Councilmember Garola would as well, for all the time that they put into creating that application and guidelines process. And also I wanted to mention that the application itself as well as the process is broad for the downtown area, and understanding there's lots of variables that if there's anybody listening who is interested in applying for that, but is wondering, just want to remind folks that it's developed in a broad way, so just fill it out to the best of your ability and submit it. It's definitely meant to help, and we're looking to create a safe and sustainable way to have outdoor dining in the downtown area. And I don't know if Councilmember Garola wants to add anything.
Yes, and I would agree with everything you said, including our city attorney who put countless hours to make sure this is put together. And again, because we wanted to provide our community, our restaurants, with an opportunity to be able to go out and have outdoor dining in a safe environment. There is no fee that's being asked for this application. The city will work with individuals in undertaking this process. We want our businesses to be successful, and we push this through in a very short timeline, with staff working diligently to get this process and ready to be placed online last week, I believe it is. And with the Labor Day weekend coming up, I would recommend anybody, any of the businesses, restaurants downtown or in the area who wish to open with outdoor dining to please submit their applications and as soon as possible. And it is online.
Thank you very much. That is important. Now we'll move on to the Tulare County Regional Transit Agency. Councilmember Garola.
Yes, in attendance also or online was Vice Mayor Reyes, so if he has anything to say. But the item is before you tonight. It is one of the consent items, which is the MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding with the City of Porterville for Personnel and Administrative Services. Prior to taking action on that item, Mr. Quinn, legal counsel for the county and now for the Tulare County Regional Transit Agency, did address the members, and we agreed that if any modifications needed to be done to the JPA, they could be done with the two attorneys. And so there may be some slight modifications. I believe they're listed in the draft or in the MOU that's been presented tonight. I also, prior to the vote, wanted to make sure that the board members understood that the City of Porterville was way ahead of the game, and that we didn't need the money for the personnel. That was not our intent, because the time is more valuable. And this is Mr. Mitch Tree. And so I did say that it's not the money, but it's actually being that we have been pioneers in the transit industry under the leadership of Mr. Tree. And I'm not going to read it all, but that we have had support from the San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District. We have, or under his leadership, he has moved transit ridership from dropping and increased transport by 400%. And that our intent with participating is that we provide our riders with the best transit that's possible. And so I went through the letter. I asked the letter to be also placed on the in the minutes so that it would be available to any members that were not present. And actually, there were only vice mayor, but were there only, not even, we barely made a quorum, which surprised me.
Yeah, it was just barely a quorum, and we waited a couple minutes to achieve that.
Yeah, yeah, so that was very surprising for me, since, this is a new agency that has been, has come together for a regional purpose, so, but that was the end of the meeting. Our next meeting will be, gosh, I don't even know what day it is. I think it's the 26th next month, or this month.
And I also want to thank Member Garola for highlighting the process that it took for the city of Porterville to get to the point where it can be an active and prominent contributor to the agency, and that as we get to the mountain and start to build the first foothold to climb it, we can't forget the trail that we had to hike and blaze to get there. So I appreciate her being able to succinctly give that information to the rest of the board.
I want to say thank you to those council members that were predecessors before the time I came on, because this project had been going on since before I got onto council, and was able to pick up on it in 2016 when the conversation continued at the Tulare County Association of Governments. So it's been years to come to fruition, but with Porterville in the forefront, project just makes me proud of each and every participant to see it come forward. So thank you very much for your report. No questions? Okay, thank you so much. We will now move on to reports. This is the time for all committee, commission, board reports, subcommittee reports, and staff informational items. On city commission and committee meetings, there are none to report. Is that correct? All right, then we will move on to oral communications. This is the opportunity to address the council on any matter of interest, whether on the agenda or not. Please address all items not scheduled for public hearing at this time. Unless additional time is authorized by the council, all commentary shall be limited to 3 minutes. If anyone is here for the public hearing, item number 13, please hold your comment when that item comes up on the agenda. You will be given the opportunity to speak then. Is there any, thank you.
Rock Mealy, address on record. Mr. Lawless. A blast from the past. An email chain that started on July 4th of 2009 with former mayor and council member Cam Hamilton, referencing an article from the Times-Delta where they actually found positive tests for West Nile and mosquitoes in Dinuba. I sent the article out, and his response, which is on the bottom of the front page, is, "Brock, thanks for the article. I'm always amazed how the infected mosquitoes are usually found in areas that have an abatement district." That kind of sounds like things coming out of Washington, D.C. right now. We only have more positive cases because we're doing more testing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that would like to come forward? Seeing none, do we have any electronic oral communications?
We do, Your Honor.
Thank you.
The first is from Charles Laughlin. And the subject is on residential water, sewer, trash, recycle, and yard waste services under Ordinance 1494A, Section 13-5. Council members, thank you for the opportunity to present our comments, concerns, and questions. My wife and I closed escrow on July 9th, 2020. Residential address is 909 North Creekview Street. This is a secondary residence for us. We will be snowbirding. We will not be moving in until January 4th, 2021. When we made contact to have water and sewer services established on or about July 15th, 2020, we were told curbside trash and yard waste recycling had to all begin at the same time. We made it known that we wouldn't be moving in until January 2021. That until such time, all we needed was water services for our automated sprinkler system. We understand that Ordinance 1494A, Section 13-5 reads The purpose of this ordinance is to regulate collection, transportation, and disposal of solid waste. We raised question, if nobody has ever lived in this newly constructed house, also if there isn't anyone currently living there and nobody will reside there until January 2021, where is the waste going to come from? Who is going to use the sewer? What trash will accumulate that needs to be picked up to be transported to the landfill? So let me try to understand this. We are expected to pay for services that aren't being used. They are not being used because the residential dwelling is and has been vacant since being constructed. Your ordinance reflects that it exists in order to protect the public safety, health, and welfare and to enhance the environment of the people of Porterville. In what possible way are we jeopardizing the welfare and safety of the citizens of Porterville when we have never lived in Porterville? Nor are we living there now and will not be living there until next January 2021. Please help Charles and Jan Laughlin. Next is from Edith Levon. Yesterday afternoon, I put up my Biden-Harris signs. This morning at 8 a.m., one sign was missing. The stand was still in place. I paid for the sign and it was on my property. I did report it to the police and hope no more signs will disappear as I will replace it. On another note, a mortar, fireworks, was set off at 9:32 p.m. last night. It's still annoying. And thank you for discussing the mosquito problem. Next is from Catherine Capone. Summary of August 2020 Tule River Parkway Native Plant Demonstration Garden Project. August was an exciting month at the Tule River Native Plant Demonstration Gardens. 3 new groups adopted gardens and 2 of these groups started groundwork on their gardens. The project has 8 gardens which are planted. Currently, a total of 4 groups of adopted garden sites intend to plant their gardens before the spring. There are 6 additional sites available for adoption. Volunteers put in 58 hours during August, and I, as project manager, put in 42 and a half hours at the gardens. The gardens are along the Tule River Parkway path between Parkway Drive, Oakview intersection, and J Street. The gardens are examples of how native plants can be used in home landscapes. Native plants use an average of 80% less water than traditional landscapes and provide habitat for wildlife, including butterflies and birds. Contact Kathy at tulerivergarden@gmail.com for more information. Sincerely, Kathy Capone. Also, please consider other methods by which the public could submit comments at the council meetings. It's difficult to submit an email to provide a comment during a meeting for an item that is open to public comment unless a person provides a comment prior to the meeting. Other systems might allow for immediate comments after hearing about the issue or item as the meeting progresses. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we will now move on into the consent calendar. All consent calendar items are considered routine and will be enacted in one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these matters unless a request is made, in which event the item will be removed from the consent calendar. All items removed from the consent calendar for further discussion will be heard at the end of scheduled matters. Council?
Mr. Lawless, are you removing an item?
I was going to defer to the council, but staff requests removing item 10 and make it a scheduled matter, please.
Okay, we will move item number 10 and add it to scheduled matters. If there are no others, no questions,
I would move for approval of items 1 through 9, and then 11 and 12.
we have a motion by Councilmember Garola, and I'll second. No further discussion. Please call for vote.
Councilmember Garola,
Aye.
Councilmember Peñalosa,
Aye.
Councilmember Stowe, Councilmember Stowe,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Reyes,
Aye.
Mayor Flores.
Aye, passes unanimous, 5-0. Okay, now we will move on into the public hearing, item number 13.
Thank you, Your Honor. There is one public hearing that's been scheduled for this evening, which is the considerations of various modifications to transit services, and Mr. Knight will provide the staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Lawless. Mayor, members of the council, I've asked Mr. Tree, City of Porterville's Field Service Manager, to provide the staff report.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Knight. Mr. Lawless, appreciate the introduction. Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the council. The City of Porterville is a recipient of Federal Transit Administration funding and is required to comply with all FTA rules and regulations, of which a public hearing and public comment procedures must be established when considering transit fare increases and major service reductions. A major service reduction is defined as a 25% or more reduction of the number of transit route miles. Staff recommendations presented tonight have met that threshold. Therefore, this is the time and place to conduct a public hearing on consideration of various modifications to transit services. At the City Council meeting of August 18, 2020, staff presented recommended strategies to improve the city's public transit system. After such review, the council directed staff to proceed with tonight's public hearing to consider public input regarding the following modifications and proposed to be effective October 1, 2020. The first recommendation is focused around our fixed route system, and a key performance indicator that we use for service effectiveness is measured by the average passengers per service hour. Our standard is 15 passengers per hour, and currently routes number 4 and 6 average 4 and 5 passengers per hour respectively, and should be considered for modification. Staff tonight is recommending to eliminate routes 4 and 6 due to low productivity and supplement these service areas with our microtransit transport service. The second item tonight is regarding our complimentary paratransit service, commonly referred to as Dial-A-Ride, and to comply with Americans with Disabilities Act, which requires public transit agencies to provide fixed route bus service to also provide complimentary paratransit service to people with disabilities who cannot use fixed route buses because of a disability. Essentially, we have to provide service to these folks with paratransit service under the same hours and same days. And to comply with that recommendation, with that requirement, staff is recommending to temporarily reduce Dial-A-Ride service hours to align with our fixed route bus service, which would be from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m., operating 7 days a week. And then finally, regarding our microtransit transport service, it's, as discussed last time, the service continues to perform exceptionally well. It is the most cost-effective service that we offer, and happy to report that August continues to improve with a 10% increase in ridership over July. And so we wanted to focus on improvements for transport. Tonight, we'd like to recommend that we consider a 31-day unlimited pass, which we have branded the City Pass, which would be available on all services. Staff analyzed the cost of microtransit and really used the basis of taking 2 trips on microtransit 5 days a week would essentially cost $120, but to incentivize the use of the service, we wanted to present to you tonight a consideration of a $100 31-day pass that can be used on all services. Staff, there was also discussion about expanding our service area, and Mayor, I appreciate your comments about how long it took to form this new agency, and we want to work with the member agencies on a regional approach for complete county coordination, and therefore we've recommended to continue to evaluate the possibility of expanding to Lindsay, Springville, Terabella, Woodville, and the same recommendation to continue to evaluate the opportunity for a cashless or near cashless fare system in the same regional approach. So the staff's recommendation at this time is that the city council conduct the public hearing, and after consideration of any comments regarding these matters, direct staff to implement the following modifications to the public transit system effective October 1, 2020. And that is, number 1, eliminate routes 4 and 6. 2, temporarily reduce paratransit dial-a-ride service from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. 7 days a week. Set a fee for an unlimited 31-day pass of $100 that will be accepted on all portable transit services. And then 4 and 5, continue to evaluate microtransit expansion into the communities that we just talked about, Lindsay, Terabella, Springville, Woodville, and continue to evaluate a cashless payment option. And that's the conclusion of the staff report, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Okay. We will go ahead. It is 7:11. We will open up the public hearing. Is there anyone here that would like to speak? Is there anyone electronically?
You want to give me the 3-minute thing? Okay. All right. Comment received from Lisa Duncan, Porterville Transit Concerns. Dear council members, I've been a Porterville resident for over 25 years, and I'm currently a part-time church secretary. I've raised my sons in this town that we now call home. One thing I've always told people about this town is how accessible everything is for those of us who do not own vehicles. Porterville Transit, as has been run these past few years, has been a godsend for so many of us. The drivers are wonderful and thoughtful, and the management listens to its riders. I couldn't do much of anything without them. I've recently become aware that they continue to revamp the system and that my particular route, Route 6, will be eliminated due to low ridership. Please let me explain why I believe this is an incorrect assumption. First, most of the time the fare boxes don't work. They either don't take money or read the cards, and people are allowed to get on and ride to the transit center where they can purchase a ticket inside. Therefore, the readings from these fare boxes are not giving you a full accounting of the amount of people who use this route. Route 6 in particular has had issues with the box making a very loud noise at random times during a ride. I hate to say this, but money should have been put into fixing the current buses rather than purchasing the new ones, but that's just my personal opinion. Secondly, Route 6 stops by 2 very large apartment complexes, the Villa Robles Apartments and another complex directly next door. Quite a few of us who live in these large complexes use Route 6 to get to our places of employment. I take the bus to and from my job, and I know of at least 2 other people who use it for work. I know that may not sound like a sufficient amount of people to be concerned for, but for those few, losing Route 6 would be detrimental to their ability to earn a living, thereby paying taxes. Further, Lowe's, Home Depot, and Aldi's get a lot of bus riders shopping. Also, many of the residents in that area use the bus to get to Walmart or Target, Save Mart, Family Healthcare Network, others doctor's offices, any other store or place of business. I've been very proud to say that for our small town, we have one of the best bus systems in Tulare County because I could literally get on any bus and get to any area of Porterville I needed. The removal of Route 6 will eliminate that convenience and necessity for many families on that side of town. The new van system they are attempting to put into place isn't convenient for those of us with daily jobs, and we shouldn't have to make an appointment to get to work. I cannot speak to it as I have not used it myself. However, I purchased a $40 monthly pass, and I don't know if that will be usable on these new vans. In all truth, we don't really know much about them. Therefore, I'm asking that whomever is making the decision about Route 6 to please reconsider. My sons have their own jobs, and I cannot rely on them, nor do I want to. The bus system allows people to be self-sufficient. That is so important for many people who live alone, are perhaps older, and don't have families close enough to help. Porterville Transit is such a blessing for us that any time there is a change, it throws riders off kilter a little. One more thing, riders should be made more aware of the decision-making process. Not the actual decision-making, but at least we should be told when meetings are being held about the transit center so we can have more of a voice. I would think the city council would want to hear from their constituents directly. Thank you for taking the time to read this, and I do hope that Route 6 remains intact with all stops remaining. Respectfully, Lisa Duncan. Next communication is from Jack Winter, getting the bus service. Why are you gutting the bus service? Sorry, why are you gutting the bus service? You have already cut off half of the town by removing Route 7 and 8. Now you want to take 4 and 6. how will people get to the hospital and family health care network? Also, I can't afford $6 a day for a round trip, but I can barely afford the $3 for the bus. That new transit bus is too expensive for the elderly and disabled. Why don't you have a all-day fare for it? Seniors and disabled should get $3 for the whole day like the bus is. That's the report.
Thank you very much. Okay, it is 7:15. We will close the public hearing and council. Any questions? Any direction? Councilmember Gurrola?
Yes, I had another question, but I wanted to bring up the two comments from the writers. I don't have the agenda from last meeting that shows the routes. I think there was wait a minute, it's attached to it. But Route 6, is that the one that goes to Family Health Network? Mr. Tree?
Councilwoman Gurrola, you're correct.
And what about the issues that were stated regarding the fare box? Do you know if there's any issues with it?
I believe the comment was regarding the fare box not functioning correctly.
Yes.
I think these devices, it's a fair statement. They definitely require a lot of maintenance. There's a lot of moving parts. We do have automatic passenger counters on board to give a second validation of the number of passengers. So if one is not working, we still collect the passenger count through the sensor.
Okay. And I have seen now where the passenger vehicle service per hour, Route 4 has 4 people per hour, and Route 6 has 5 passengers per hour. And that particular route runs, is it 8 to 7?
That's correct.
Okay. The comment that alerted me a little bit was the Family Health Network. You know, we probably saw it, we may not have discussed it, but now that I'm hearing, and I'm sure you're aware, if not, years ago when we started transit, the Family Health Network really wanted to start up transit for that area, and it took many, many years. So I don't want to see us lose a route that may be in need, or if there's an alternative that we can use, if there's something else that we can look at. I'd certainly like to hear if there's any other type of a smaller van, smaller bus, something. I do want to say that the expansion of the routes to a regional approach is exactly why this the TCRTA was started. So will that go to all of Tulare County?
Well, we in discussions with the interim executive director, I believe that's the direction that he wants staff to concentrate on is to expand similar services throughout the county, specifically focusing on smaller communities that makes perfect sense for.
Okay. So I would go back then, and again, that's exactly why the regional approach was taken. But I'm having a little bit of hesitance, though it's only 4 or 5 per hour. It appears that they're based on the input and that it goes to the Family Health Network, that it may be a disadvantage to some of the riders that are taking that route. So I'll leave it up to the rest of the council for further discussion.
I'm going to chime in on that conversation for family health care because I used to serve on the board 94, 97, and in the year 2000, 2005. I know that at one time they had their own vehicles to transport patients, and that became a cost-effective, and they could it would cost more money to keep the vehicles repaired, and so they don't have any of that now, is that correct? Because I do know that's when they began to expand to the city so that people could come to the clinics, for them to be able to get to the clinics to that regard. Now, in the ridership aspect with transport, how would that, because this is, they used vans to transport years ago, and that worked up until they had a lot of vehicle maintenance. There is nothing right now with Family Healthcare that they do that, because I haven't been in the conversations with them in years, so they don't have that accessibility anymore, to your knowledge.
It's my understanding that they still provide their own transportation for clients to come in to receive services. I don't know to the extent of how many vehicles they have operating and the locations that they're using, but there was some time that their request was to start Route 6 because they didn't have transportation. Then they started their own service and continue to operate in some fashion.
Okay, because that would be my question, if they are offering it to their patients so that they can get to their appointments, if there's something that they would have that does exist? I just don't know that. I know that at one time it was something that was available to their patients.
Yeah, I will say, over the years, transporting out to the Family Health Care Center, we hope that there would have been better coordination with their expansion. We do have trouble accessing their facility. There is a dedicated spot, but it's not enforced, and so again.
In the setup out there, that is correct.
Yeah, I think that as presented on the last council agenda, or last council meeting, I think there's a need. There's trip generators out there, but they should be looked at much shorter routes, and that bring the headways down a little bit to make them more cost effective.
Okay.
It's difficult to get a bus in there, and then we got to go around an entire city block to access an exit route. It's just an unfortunate location where it's established. Community shuttle could be considered as well.
Thank you. Councilmember Stowe?
I do have a question. The young lady that wrote the letter saying that they had a call every day, is there a possibility, like if you go to work and you're going to go to work at a certain time, every day, can you do it reserve it on a monthly basis, or you have to call daily? For the microtransit, I believe.
My apologies, Councilman Stowe. The fans in here was making it a little difficult to hear your
I
question,
know.
but if I heard it correctly, it's regarding how folks can schedule trips on transport. There's no limit as far as time frame in advance that they can schedule. They can schedule a trip for today, 3 weeks down the road. To answer your question, we do allow for advance booking with no time frame. The real science behind this microtransit is using technology to quickly book a ride, either on your smartphone or calling in, and essentially receiving a ride within 15 minutes.
So they can go on their phone and reserve for the entire month if they need to, every day.
Absolutely.
Okay. The other question I had, the gentleman that actually wrote in and says that he could ride the bus for all over $3 all day long, and how much more will the transport cost them?
Well, transport is in a pilot a phase. The council directed a fare of $3 across the board, regardless of the type of passenger, so there's no reduced fare. A round trip is $6, regardless of age or disability.
And the transport is similar to Uber or Lyft, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And the dial ride, is that something different? I mean, is it gonna be, they'll pick you up at your doorstep at certain times, or you have to reserve on a daily basis?
Yeah, Dollar Ride is similar to transport, meaning that it's a demand response, the type of service. So folks need to book a ride in advance. Paratransit being dedicated to the senior and disabled population, those are the only folks that can ride the service. We do require 24 advanced booking. Just due to the low ridership, we need to be able to know what the next day's activities are and schedule accordingly, so we don't have staff sitting around waiting for a next call, because ridership right now has been averaging only 9 passengers a day.
Okay, and they can book anywhere in the cities, not just to doctor's office or hospital or clinic, is that correct? They can go to Walmart, Lowe's, or whatever they want to.
Councilman, that's correct. We do not have any trip restrictions for either Dollar Ride or microtransit.
Thank you.
Councilmember Peñalosa?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I have a quick question in regards to notices. Did the transits, I'm just curious to know if the transit there should be more public notice about the changes that are going to be made. Were they posted on the transit stops by any chance, or was there any attempt to let the riders know about the potential changes by any chance?
Yeah, as far as avenues for communicating upcoming service modifications, number one is we advertise in the newspaper 14 days in advance. Historically, put a flyer in both English and Spanish on all of the vehicles. At the at-stop level, we typically don't post that at the bus stop, but on the vehicles has been normal practice.
Thank you. And the other question that I had, I know it was answered, but just to make sure I'm clear on it. So if I were to want to, say for example, Route 4 and 6 are completely eliminated, and I am trying to get to work, and I was using, like, you know, to one of the comments that was made, like, to get to work. So if they were to take the transit Route 6 to work around the city, it's going to be $3 to get there, and then $3 to get back home for them. So it'll be a total of $6, which would be the same if they were to use the microtransit.
So Fixed Route does offer an all-day pass, and it's essentially fare capping. Once you've reached the $3 amount, the rest of your trips are essentially free. That's an all-day pass. So if a complete round trip would reach that $3 minimum, and then therefore they can ride the rest of the day for free.
And under the microtransit, they would pay the $6 for, like, during the pilot portion of it, since we're in a pilot right now, right?
That would be correct. For a round trip, it would be 6.
Okay. So eventually, do we anticipate a change in fee when we're thinking about, you know, the long-term, you know, transit system throughout the county and the GPA, or do we anticipate that the fees will maybe be lower eventually for the microtransit?
I might say it's for council's consideration.
Yeah, you got a couple of things to consider there. One being that there is conversation about having a set rate across the county. So that is one of the things that the JPA will be considering, which is setting a uniform rate per ride, because right now it varies. There's different agencies that offer different discounts or don't offer discounts. So that is one of the conversations that needs to be had with regards to a uniform straight rate structure, which does not currently exist across systems.
Got it.
So in answer to the question, there's a couple of different competing interests. One, you have uniformity of rates across the county. Two, you have what is the service that's being provided and what does it cost to deliver it. And just because the cost of the service is low doesn't mean that the service is good. So we, you know, as an example, you can provide transit service to Springville, but that's a pickup in the morning and delivery at night.
Okay. So I guess, yeah, I know that, how did we come to the determination of $100 for 31? Is that something we currently have with the current system, for the portable transit, or how much we charge $100 per 31-day pass?
Well, the staff used an example of if someone were to ride twice a day for 5 days a week, that essentially would cost them $120 for the month. We want to incentivize using the service, so we will take a reduction to 100 for council's consideration. Ultimately, you may set the fare at whatever you feel is appropriate, and to encourage use of the other services. That's why we have recommended branding it as a city pass, so that it's good on all services. One single pass, it covers all. I will say that, you know, regional or monthly passes in metropolitan areas are extremely expensive, $150 on up for that. We are cautious of our service area and don't want to have a fee that's, you know, essentially too expensive to afford. So would you know, council consider, you know, setting a fee that you feel appropriate?
All right, thank you. And lastly, I would say that I am, you know, I appreciate the public's comments all the time, because it paints a better perspective as we're making decisions. And you know, I was unaware, you know, immediately to myself to realize that Route 6 do take folks to the Family Health Care Network, and so I'm trying to figure out how to personally, for me, is just that I know that's a huge, going to your doctors and going over there, it is really important for a lot of folks in the community. And if we can figure out a way to I know that a lot of folks maybe aren't used to the microtransit just yet. And, I guess figuring out a transition plan for folks that may not be used to the fact that they're, used to like the microtransit system, new pilot program that we have. Or if there is a possibility for us to do a shuttle, I don't know, like, because I do think that's definitely, hearing some of the comments from the mayor and Councilwoman Garola, just looking at the background of that, I think we should consider that, because it is an important route, I think, when it comes to access to medical services here in the city. So, but I do understand that the ridership for those two routes have been in decline in the last couple of months, and so I know we're trying to find proactive ways to be more effective and look at it cost effective when it comes down to our transit system. So I guess those are some of my concerns moving forward, at least with in terms of Route 6. Yeah, but thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilmember Peñalosa. I just want to reiterate that the microtransit vehicle was just as large as the vans that used to be used for the patients at Family Healthcare Network. The comparable size is there. That's all I'm going to say. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate the dialogue that's happening and also looking at the analysis that was done previously, noticing that these two routes that we're talking about were the next lowest performers, or at least ridership-wise, in the analysis that was done. And then also recognizing that with the circumstances that we're living in, mostly because of COVID and looking at the months of the drop-off, that the ridership directly reflects the activity at the destinations, where the activity at the destinations, were it be as active as previously, the ridership would not be as low. And so, and while I'm saying that, I'm also considering that the feedback we did receive from the public, is something to consider, because of the few riders that are there. I think we have heard from some of them. But my question would be, because of the circumstances that we have, and the circumstances hopefully are temporary and hopefully not long-lived. Hopefully it's a short-term circumstance that we're living in. But seeing as that we're flexible and doing the analysis, and should an understanding that transport would be there, and hopefully the conversion to utilizing that service would be easier than anticipated, as change is usually tough to handle at first. But as we look at it, and the destinations do increase in activity, with this flexibility to analyze, would we be as flexible in increasing service back to the destination should we see that there's an increase? And also likewise, the conversation with the destinations and the coordination, as you indicated, I would hope to see that increase, because I think that's a direct driver to the traffic that's headed to the destination, as well as the appointment scheduling and things that the ridership would consider, especially given the family health care destination. So mostly just the flexibility. Is there flexibility going the other way should it need be?
Appreciate the comment, Vice Mayor. I definitely would agree with you that we have flexibility here. Both routes have trip generators. I think that we can continue to evaluate serving the southern population of Porterville. We could possibly bring back some tweaks to those routes that make them shorter and less expensive to operate, but still hit the key trip generators is one consideration. Possibly even consider just a temporary suspension. You hear of that a lot in other agencies where there's just temporary modifications, and then when the economy or the activity comes back, then they restore service. And so I may admit that elimination is a strong word when we know that these areas will need to be served in the future. We just hope that development along those routes will progress. It's unfortunate that the Walmart was a potentially huge trip generator for Route 6, but it doesn't should be not understated that there are needs, and we wanted to offer another type of service, not leave them stranded with no mobility, but agree with the points.
And I'm relieved to hear that at least there are some things that can be looked at. But as I mentioned before, hopefully what we're looking at with transport would be done with ease. But also understanding that the process of this analysis is going to be a guiding force in how the rest of the countywide transit is analyzed, and how the process is streamlined and improved throughout the county. As we do kind of lead the pack in how we're doing this, I think that looking at how we do it responsibly and sustainably, both with ridership and monetarily, is important, because going forward it's going to become a much larger, potentially a much larger endeavor, and I appreciate the effort and thought that's going into it.
Council member? Yes, please, go ahead.
Yeah, I would agree. And what I had written was that perhaps we could, for Route 6, is the one that I'm looking at, maybe extend that, because October 1st was going to be the effective date. If we could do Route 6 until January, in the meantime, start working with the ridership to understand what the microtransit is and try to make a transition to that after the holiday, Christmas holiday. Might be at least helpful for some of the individuals to know that there may be an end date, of course, knowing that it could come back at a later date depending on demand. But I also had a second question. And I remember, Mr. Tree, it was discussed, I believe, at the Transit Forum, that there was a legislation that was going through that students and seniors would have a free pass to ride the buses. Do you know if that's is still underway or any action taken on that?
Councilman Grola, I'm not aware that, that they've taken any action. I know that it has been brought forth in legislation, but I have not heard any movement of lately.
Yeah, I haven't either. Do you know if it were approved, let's say, would that affect microtransit, or would that just be the buses?
My understanding of the language was focused on the buses. Microtransit is looked as a premium service, an extension of fixed route, and so I don't believe that would be offered on those premium type of service.
Okay, I just wanted to confirm that. Then I would, again, say if we can go until at least the end of December and then move those individuals on Route 6 into the transporter, it might be a good way to at least get them onto that type of ridership.
There's been a couple of comments tonight, and I know this is kind of in Mr. Tree's wheelhouse, and I think there's different ways that technology can work to this benefit. There's two ways to look at economies. There's economy of what the cost is to deliver the service, which, as he said, is a premium. This is a direct one-to-one benefit. You don't have to walk to a stop, which right now under the regulations is a half a mile. So you don't have to make a half mile, stop. If you look at where the routes run, many folks do have to walk that half mile to get to that location. So you have door-to-door service for something that's generally at the same price. That being said, data can also provide you what are your trip generators and may cause the need for fixed route service. Say, hey, we have enough folks that are going to Family Healthcare Network. There are certain standards that I think that get there, but there also is data that can provide you to say, as Riverwalk develops or other commercial tenants or those, the Eagle Mountain Casino development, in that area may generate additional trips and therefore maybe better served with fixed route than it is with microtransit just by the trip generation. So I think that's all data that works both ways, at both efficiency standards.
May I ask which clinics are we talking? One downtown or one on 190? Or
190.
okay.
Anyone have any other questions? No other questions? All right, council, what is the recommended? Oh, I did have one question. I saw, all of a sudden, I looked at my note. In the transport vehicle, especially during COVID, how many passengers?
The transport vehicles can handle four ambulatory folks, passengers, and one passenger with a mobility device.
Okay, that was just a question that I had. All right.
I apologize, Mayor. That's with our current fleet. We do expect taking delivery of our new electric vans, which increase the capacity up to 9 passengers.
Wonderful.
So we're really excited to offer these new vans to the community. A great project that with the Air District as well.
Yeah, and that's another example in answer to Councilman Peñaloz's question. So the more and I think I'm going to look to my Lyft driver here. Ride sharing. I know there are options, at least in Uber, where you didn't have just your own ride. You could have others join you. I've done it. I've been on an Uber with other folks, and the software designs says, well, you guys are going in about the same place. I'm going to pick you up and then pick them up and then drop them off and drop you off.
That's correct.
This software is developed the same way where it looks in real time who needs trips. So right now you're limited by how many, imagine there'll be additional efficiencies that will come as you have more riders that can use that one vehicle. So it actually will reduce, when you talk about what is the cost versus the revenue, so I would imagine you'll see lesser, with more riders, lesser vehicles on because they'll be sharing more rides.
Okay.
Functioning like mass transit, but door to door. If that, because you're going to have the ability to double the number of passengers.
Are there more phone calls for the transport than there are scheduling them on the app?
I'm sorry, Mayor, what was the
For
question?
the transport, are there more people using the phone to schedule their pickup than they are using the app?
Yes, just a tad bit more. It's a little bit, it's not quite 50-50 as far as folks using the app and still calling in.
Okay.
It's a little bit more that folks are calling in to schedule trips. We're trying to educate the community on utilizing the smartphone so you can have real-time arrival information that they don't receive by calling in.
Okay. All right, council, in which direction,
I have a motion.
please?
Approve as recommended by staff with the exception of item 1, to not eliminate Route 6 until the end of the year and work with the riders to provide them with information on microtransit. Because we do want to move in that direction. And I know that in the interim that Mr. Tree will work to see how he can assist those riders. That's my recommendation. That's my motion.
Thank you very much, and do we have a second?
I'll second, just if I could ask another question after.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second, open for discussion.
Just concerning if that is detrimental in any way to cost or effectiveness of any other elements of the program to create the extension, because definitely more time to educate as well as to allow for upcoming trips in certain areas would be beneficial to the public, but also understanding there could be a downside as far as efficiencies. So just wanting to get a feel for that.
No further discussion?
Mayor,
Yes?
can I
Okay.
just get clarification on the motion again? Just make sure I'm clear on what I'm going to be voting on, please.
You want me to say it again?
Please.
Yeah, if you don't mind, Council,
Okay.
please.
Approve the item, or approve the recommendations as presented with the exception of item 1, to not eliminate Route 6 until the end of the year, to provide an opportunity for the riders to get the information on microtransit, and that Mr. Tree, I'm sure, will work with opportunities for that particular route. And I'm using, on a side note, not part of the motion, I'm using that because both of the individuals mentioned the health network, family health network. So I feel that that's probably the priority. So that's my motion, but I would also like to hear from Mr. Tree regarding Vice Mayor's question. I think it was a question on the cost.
I thought it was too. So.
Yeah, it just definitely, it was a question. I saw a nodding of heads, but if specifically, if you had let me know if that delay in lessening the service would be detrimental in any other element to the services you're providing.
I would say you're funding it out of CARES Act funding, so I would say it's just a matter of the council's already taken action to fully fund its transit operations. I guess you would say it comes at a minimal expense to streets, because in the end, you have to fund transit before you fund road work.
Okay.
So it's not so much detrimental to the operation as much as it is, but again, I mean, we've already seen what the cost of streets are. You're not giving up a street because of it.
Oh, okay. That's what I was gonna say.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? We have a motion and we have a second. No further discussion. Please call for vote.
Councilmember Garola?
Aye.
Councilmember Peñalosa?
Aye.
Councilmember Stowe?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Reyes?
Aye.
Mayor Flores?
Aye, passes unanimous, 5-0. Mr. Tree, thank you very much for the report. All right, we will now move on into scheduled matters.
Thank you, Your Honor. We have 3 scheduled matters before the council this evening. The first is to consider the designation of a voting delegate and alternates for the League of California Cities virtual annual conference, which this year will be on Wednesday, October 7th through Friday, October 9th. This year will be a little bit different than prior years in that the annual conference will be occurring virtually. It is at a reduced rate, obviously, given that there isn't convention center rental costs and those sorts of things associated, and not certain if any of the members of council are currently planning to participate in the upcoming conference, or if anybody's interested in serving as its delegate or alternates on that Friday membership meeting.
Vice Mayor, do you have an interest in serving as?
I hadn't yet committed to attending
Okay.
the conference, so I would hate to volunteer to take the spot should someone else
Okay.
find
Do
it
we
more
have- Do we have a
satisfactory.
volunteer?
If I may, I don't know that you need to attend the conference to, I'm, maybe Patrice, you can assist here. I'm gonna make, obviously, it's gonna be an electronic participation. I think if someone wished to attend just that part of it and not part of that, there is a competing, another virtual event on Friday, which is Southern California Edison's Hispanic Appreciation Day is also occurring on that day.
I would.
Councilmember Peñalosa?
I was gonna participate in the conference for both days, but I was the delegate last year. But if there's no one else that would like to do it, I wouldn't mind doing it. But like I said, I was the delegate last year, so I would want to give the space for anyone else that would like to consider it. But I would like to attend both days.
Well, good, that means you have experience. Well, normally I
That
see
means you're
delegate
okay for that, okay? All
And
right.
I'm leaving in December, so no.
All right, Councilmember Peñalosa, once again, you're in.
All right, sounds good to me.
I volunteer to be the alternate.
Oh,
if-
we now have a volunteer for an
The
alternate.
2 alternates.
Then I'll be the very last alternate because that's it, all right?
Okay.
All right, so it's Councilmember Peñalosa, Vice Mayor Reyes, and it will be me as the very last go-to. We've made the motion. I make the motion that we have Councilmember Peñalosa as the voting delegate, Vice Mayor Reyes as the first alternate, and I will be the second alternate.
And I'll second the motion.
And we have a second. Call for vote, please.
Councilmember Garola?
Aye.
Councilmember Peñalosa?
Aye.
Councilmember Stowe?
I have it off of mute this time. Aye.
Vice Mayor Reyes?
Aye.
Mayor Flores?
Aye, passes unanimous, 5-0. Moving on.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your next scheduled matter this evening is your regular COVID emergency update. Just a couple of items to note. I would say most significantly was the governor's announcement last Friday, which transitioned, I would say, the state monitoring list system as it's related to the opening of the economy to what's now called the Blueprint for a Safer Economy, which moved from a monitoring system directly between the state and the county and to now a tiered system, four-tiered system designated by colors from yellow, orange, red, and purple, progressively going from moderate to widespread. Tulare County, like many other counties in California, are considered purple and widespread, given that their cases per 100,000 on a daily basis are exceeding 7 per 100,000, and that their positivity rates are greater than 8%. Tulare County, just today, as an example, it's 18.5 cases per day per 100,000, and a positivity rate of about 13%. I would say one part of good news, if you would say, under the economy was that barbers and hair salons were allowed to reopen this week on Monday. It was thought that there may be some other personal services that might be allowed to reopen as well, but that wasn't the case under the state's guidelines. Under that new tiered system, there now needs to be 21 days. Previously, it was 14 days to be removed from the monitoring list. Now there's additional levels and 21 days that need to be within a certain tier to be able to progress until the next. And so I would say, like I said, most notably, that's what's occurred in the last 2 weeks is the governor's announcement of that occurred on Friday and became effective this week, yesterday. Just as a general update, the ad hoc committee, as previously heard, met last week with staff out for right now for the public's consumption and hopeful utilization by restaurants is for outdoor dining guidelines. As a point of interest to that, there's significant movement that's going to have to occur between tiers before indoor dining is again allowed in Tulare County. So restaurants' ability to work through the city and its in using of local right-of-way for outdoor restaurant dining, especially in the downtown area, that instrument is available to them right now, was available as of last week. Navigation Center is open. It's serving, I would say, approximately 25 individuals per day. I drove there by today, and there was a handful of folks that were there engaging with staff in conversations. Project Room Key, according to current reports, is, and I know that the council received some comments from some of the homeless population here. Right now, half of the rooms at a Project Room Key are occupied. There's currently 108 rooms that are available, of which 63 are occupied right now. So there is room available under the Project Room Key program, according to current county records. Porterville Developmental Center is on a way to what's called a slow closing or a soft closure. The state medical staff that was manning that facility have been moved to Northern California to assist with the wildfire recovery effort. So currently, at what was a high time, I think, of 18 patients, there are 4 there today, and I would anticipate over the next week that you'll see, so as no new patients come in, the 4 that are there will be transitioned out, I would anticipate, over the next week. And then it will be in a soft closure in the event that it needs to be reactivated. So I would anticipate that to no longer be housing any COVID patients, I would say, by your next meeting. I think is reasonable to expect. Veterans continues to do testing. In fact, the Veterans Group has made the facility available through the end of this calendar year. The state is currently doing an RFQ for testing companies. So right now, this is an Optum testing site. There's a competitor called Verily, which doesn't use a set site. They do mobile sites. So should Verily be given the state contract for testing in Tulare County, that there would probably be a change in location because you would see pop-up sites occur or more mobile in testing. But that RFQ or RFP is still out right now. So so continuing, Optum is operating the testing site at the Veterans Memorial Building. And with that, that's kind of covering the highlights as it relates. It would be staff's recommendation to continue to look at the impact of COVID in the community and make a finding of continuing resolution of local emergency.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Garola?
Yes. And I don't know if you're able to answer this, Mr. Lawless, but I've been looking at the information you provide, and I've gone onto the Tulare County website for COVID. And I'm trying to see if our mask ordinance has affected the COVID numbers for the city of Porterville. You know, has it, I don't believe it's decreased it, but is there less people who are testing positive? Is there a way I can find them? Or would it require multiple reviews?
So when you say the city, it's hard to, because the county's reporting system for Porterville is the 93257 area code.
That's right.
That's an aggregate number of 93257 that isn't exclusive to the city. So the best way to do that would be to look at what the daily reports that I provide, what is the total number of cases versus what is, we provide a best guess what's in the city, but it's hard to differentiate. So what I would generally say is that the cases across Tulare County are beginning, the number of positive cases are certainly slowing. We are no longer seeing 300 or 400 a day. I would say it's now between 100 and 200 a day. So I would say there's been a decrease in the number of new cases. The positivity rate has come down slightly. It was at one time at 18%, and right now it's at 13%. Of course, corresponding with that is access to testing, which has still, I would say would be more readily available, but certainly, and I'll use the veterans testing site by OptumServe, is that you used to be able to just go and get tested, and now it's a waiting time frame for you to be able to be tested. And my understanding is they're requiring more not just asymptomatic, that you have to have symptoms as well. So I think that does affect the positivity rate, what its actual number is, but it is decreased, I would say, after the July 4th. Many surmised it being a result of the July 4th holiday, that there was increased cases and an increased positivity rate, which is both sides have decreased.
It appears to, when I have gone into Lowe's or some other places, there appears to be more people wearing their masks. Maybe one or two, but generally, and compared to what it was a few months ago, there's many more people wearing their masks. I was just wondering what our numbers were, but in looking at the data, I looked at, and I says, I don't know how you can figure this out, because I forgot it is based on the zip code. Thank you.
Okay.
Would move for approval for the continuance of the resolution.
We have a motion for the continuation. I'll go ahead and second. No further discussion. Please call for vote.
Councilmember Garola?
Aye.
Councilmember Peñalosa?
Aye.
Councilmember Stowe?
It doesn't look like he's on his screen.
He Mayor
No.
stepped away.
We must step away.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Reyes,
Aye.
Mayor Flores?
Aye. Passes unanimous.
4-0.
4-0.
Actually, she just-
Oh, there he is.
5-0, aye.
5-0. Okay, there he is. Thank you. All right, now we will move on with the
All right.
next scheduled matter.
Thank you, Your Honor. The last scheduled matter this evening was one of your consent items that staff requested to remove. I'm going to let Ms. Bemis provide this staff report, and council staff asking to modify the request before council this evening.
This Mayor, members of the City Council, with the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, we try to facilitate compliance with public health measures. And one of the things we'd like to do is to improve our city's telework capabilities for the employees, while also providing continuity of public service. Several items we want to do to facilitate this is, first one is to replace some of our desktop computers with Dell portables and docking stations. All of our departments have requested this, and there's 55 total replacements that we are requesting, cost of $110,379 plus the associated sales tax and shipping charges. We also want to purchase Microsoft Azure remote desktop services so that we can work remotely from home. The one-time cost to implement this from CDWG is $27,765, and we'd like to purchase a 3-year contract for $16,667, and then there would be an annual cost every year if we want to continue this service. Another thing we looked at is the migration from our Encode 9 to Encode 10, which is our financial software. We are actually wanting to remove this from the list that we are requesting your approval, but we still want to continue and do the online utility billing component at a cost of, we're estimating about $9,000 for the first year, which includes a one-time cost of $800 plus an annual maintenance fees of over $8,000. We'd like your approval to purchase the Dell portables and the remote desktop service, and add the online utility billing component to our Encode. That's my report.
Council, any questions?
Well, I know when Maria comes in to ask for something, it's usually something we really need. So, what was the cost again, just to do the online? Was it not 73,000, but did you say 9,000?
The online utility billing component is about $9,000 for the first year for the implementation and the annual maintenance cost.
Oh.
This will include actually $1.25 transaction fee for the customers, and also credit card fees. But with this component, our customers who would register will be able to look at the current status of their account, or the history of their accounts, the usage components. So we think it's a really good addition. And they're
Create their own
also,
accounts?
they can make payments online for their accounts too.
I mean, to look at the detail of their billing, would they need to set up a PIN?
They will have to register online. There would be a data portal, like the other, you set up your account, your own account, and
Okay.
be able to go on the web and look up your account. Yes.
Well, that's good. I know when we implemented at the college, the students really like the ability to just easily go on and look at their accounts. And I like the fact that the city is moving towards an online payment, so.
Yeah, and then one of the, I know Maria's and Ted have worked together, Mr. Williams have worked together to structure this around what will be potentially future reimbursable costs under future federal funding. I know that one of the elements that Ms. Bemis was concerned about is that the upgrade to Encode 10 wouldn't fit within the purported timelines of potential funding. So we still would like to be able to, look at upgrading at a future time, but really try to meet the immediate needs now of both what could be future potential reimbursement, federal reimbursement funding, as well as help meeting the need of the public currently.
I'm sorry, that's right. So there's also, we have a draft resolution to initially use the general fund infrastructure deferred maintenance and improvement designated fund. And then hopefully we'll get all this reimbursed by a COVID-19 grant in the future.
Okay, thank you. Council recommendation?
Move for approval for the items as presented with the amendment to item 3, that it be the billing online component at the cost as stated.
I'll second.
We have a motion and we have a second. No further discussion. Please call for vote.
Councilmember Gurrola?
Aye.
Councilmember Peñalosa?
Aye.
Councilmember Stowe?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Reyes?
Aye.
Mayor Flores?
Aye, passes unanimous, 5-0. Thank you.
Your Honor, I messed up on the prior item. I apologize. I had it in my notes, and I completely went over the top of it. So my apologies. Can we go back to the COVID item?
Yes, we can.
So when I was talking about the outdoor dining component, I talked about the city providing barriers and things of that nature, and it's requested that the council consider an appropriation of up to $100,000 for the purchase of potential barriers and things of that nature out of the emergency catastrophic fund. I had it in my notes. I don't know why I didn't say it, so I apologize. So for the council's consideration, which we would bring back as a consent item, but with your direction that we could.
To appropriate
yeah.
the 100,000?
Mr. Knight brought that to my attention, that it was in your staff report. I had it in my notes. I didn't say
Okay.
it, so I apologize.
All right.
I'm glad that you brought that up because I have a question on that.
Okay.
Those barriers, because we haven't gotten any applications and I'm hoping we'll get some, but those barriers can be used in other areas of the city for events or for work that's being done in the streets, those kinds of things.
Correct, and in addition to that, it was kind of, I was having two conversations. I was having one with Mr. Knight and then listening to Maria. Similarly, we believe that these would be reimbursable expenses under federal funding because of trying to support businesses. So again, we need to bring back for the council's consideration, given that the Emergency Catastrophic Fund is the suggested fund for these activities, that it does require a resolution of the council, but didn't want to be presumptive, and it would be your direction to bring that as an appropriation.
Okay, so the request right now is for the appropriation of the $100,000.
Correct. Out of the Emergency Catastrophic Fund.
Of the emergency catastrophic funds. I'll go ahead and make the motion to that regard.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second. No further discussion?
I would say this, I do not anticipate it to be 100,000. That is the
But
number.
that's the appropriation.
It's an up
That's
to
just a-
number.
That's
yeah.
an estimate, no further discussion, call for vote, please.
Councilmember Garola?
Aye.
Councilmember Peñalosa?
Aye.
Councilmember Stowe?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Reyes?
Aye.
Mayor Flores?
Aye, passes unanimous, 5-0. All right, taking care of business and moving on. We are now moving on to oral
Tap out.
communications.
Greg Shelton, 88 North Wilford Drive. I finally got some information from the Board of Registrars, and we have a letter. We have a letter for our cannabis proposition. It's Measure R. We were trying to get Measure P, but somebody else already had it. Then we tried Measure M. Somebody else, I guess we're not going to get that one. We even tried Measure G for Ganj and Measure Y for Yayo, but that didn't work either. So we got Measure R. I'm going to try to do some signs myself, put them up. Got some great ideas for a slogan. R for revenue, R for retail jobs, and R for rebuild the library. So it's just an idea. If you guys got something better, hit me up. Some developments. Is it Lemoore? Lemoore just approved their second license. They're also going to do cannabis cafes, I guess, and have eating and drinking and stuff like that. Valley Pure moved their headquarters from Woodlake to Farmersville, which I thought was kind of an interesting kind of a development. I'm sure the people in Woodlake aren't, or the staff in Woodlake isn't that excited about that because a lot of the revenue will probably go to Farmersville, but it already isn't. But anyway, we have 60 days till the election. We have at least one seat that's going to change up there and potentially two. So I'm hoping that we can get this done before the election, because I would hate to have a change in the direction from the council, because maybe new elects don't feel the same way about cannabis that I do or that you do. So it would be great if we could get this vote done before the election. So that's what I got. If you guys got any input on a better slogan or something, please contact me. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Brock Neely address on record. I'd just like to say that I mentioned to Mr. Tree that he might want to have some training with the office staff at Family Health Care Network on the transport system, so they can explain it to their clients, so that it would make it a better experience and everything.
Thank you. Have we gotten any oral communications electronically?
I don't believe so.
No, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. Now we will go on to other matters. Councilmember Garola?
Yes. Again, I want to thank all the staff for all the work that they do. They just do an incredible job during these trying times. But I do want to give a shout out for her last meeting and to Miss Jenny Byers. I'm glad I'm not there, because otherwise I'd start crying. But she has been part of the city, and I would say I'd call her a friend. And we're surely going to miss her, and having her in our community as well. She's been very involved, and she does a magnificent job over and above whatever is needed whenever we're working on something. And she has been, for me, a person who has worked on the Mighty 190 along with Jason Reinhauer, but their work together is inspiring. So I just want to say thank you, Jenny.
Councilmember Stowe?
Yes, Your Honor. I too want to thank Jenny, and I've had the opportunity to work with her as well as be on the council while she's a staff member, and she's always done an outstanding job and always willing and able to help you in any way that she can. And we're definitely going to miss her and Grant, and I just sad to see her go, and I wish she would stay at least 10 more years. Yeah, help the city move along, because she's done a tremendous amount of work and a lot of good for the city since her time in the office. Or I should say the position.
Councilmember Peñalosa.
Yeah, just I didn't know that Jenny was leaving us until right now. I know that she was making a decision, but I didn't know she had made it. But wishing you the best. I know that you are a very passionate individual, and I know my 2 years on council, you've always given your all to the work that you do, and I know it's been noticed from all of us. So I just wishing you the best, and hopefully we'll see you soon. Sending you a hug and wishing you the best. And I also want to just say that I'm very thankful for the fire department. We've definitely been having a tough year, and just these fires, are not stopping, and it just speaks to just the intensity of living in California. And we have another heat wave coming along in the next for Labor Day weekend, and so I'm so grateful that the firefighters got back and safely, and I know they may be called again, so just keep them in our prayers, and hope that they do return safely always, and their dedication goes unnoticed as well, and I know it's tough work, so but yeah, that's pretty much all.
Thank you. Vice Mayor.
Thank you. And I also want to wish Jenny well. I enjoyed times working with you, and especially times when maybe you had to put up with some of my rigid opinions on things, and appreciate the strength to carry through with all of those projects that we had worked with. So I wish you well, and I hope everything goes well. I'm sure you'll do fabulous in your next endeavor. And I wanted to lead off with that because the next thing I was going to say was regarding the request for Measure R. Maybe reefer, I think, is probably the R that they were going for. That's going way back. But on a serious note, also talking about the blueprint to get the businesses back on track. And I think it's funny that blue isn't one of the colors in there, probably because everybody has got the blues about the whole thing to begin with. But but looking at it seriously, it's something that we really have to take very seriously, because we're not going to get another chance to start off like this. And what I mean is, it's like giving us a chance to ride the mechanical bull while it's stopped, and then start it. Falling off that bull at this point would be the equivalent of having to get back on it while it's moving, with the extension of days. And so it's very critical that people still, don't let your foot off the gas with what you're doing, your practices, your masks, your hand washing, all the behaviors that have led us to the point where we could actually have this, what I consider a mulligan or a gimme, to get back on track with at least some of our businesses that desperately needed to get open. Keep up those practices so that we can move on to some of the next phases, because it's just as important as it ever was. And that's all I have.
Thank you very much for that. Jenny, there's history. When I first came on to council, the passionate Jenny when she would report, the Jenny that was nonstop because she was very passionate in her delivery. The one that in our travels and our adventures on committees, you were always there and very forthright and very attentive to the things you pursued because you cared. It's going to be difficult in your department. You've brought some projects to Porterville with the assistance of your colleagues. And know that we acknowledge them. I know that during other comments, I've always caught you off guard and asked you if you would like to say something. And it was always, no. But again, it's because you're very passionate. I'm going to miss you. We have history. And whether more of them were learning curves, learning vehicles for me when I first came on that first year, know how grateful I am to you. And what can I say? You're going off to an adventure. I also want to address public safety. Police and fire, all inclusive, especially during this time. You've done a lot out in the community. As I sit and I watch and I observe, I sometimes see a vehicle that will stop someone, and yet you're very proactive and you're very kind to the individual, regardless. I always say, mask up. You've done a good job of delivering that message and being there for everyone. I'm also looking at the other staff who are online. Of course, none of them show their faces on here, and I'm wondering what they're doing, but that's okay. I see Julie, Javier. Oh, there's Jason. All right, come on, let me see. Oh, there's Donnie. Come on, let me see Javier. Where's Javier? Oh, there's Patricia. Look at that. Look, come on, let me see everybody's faces, please. You're lucky I don't have to do your performance evaluations.
It's like Miss Nancy.
Actually, I appreciate that they don't seek the credit. They're more than willing to work in the background.
I can see that, but I want to say, I want to look at your faces when I want to thank you for everything that you've done, regardless. I mean, you've done a tremendous job, especially during this time and rotating shifts. Now, if Mr. Knight were on here, I'd have to ask him if he was the real Mike Knight. So he's present here this evening. The technology department is one that should not go unnoticed, because without the technology, we wouldn't be here where we are. Look at us Zooming. Whoever thought we'd be here online and having all of this? Where before we had a full house. Nonetheless, know that each and every one of you are appreciated, and I'm very grateful to everyone. Even through the stressful time, through your rotating shifts, you're awesome. Mr. Lawless, you're awesome too.
Just because they're awesome. You saw that I cratered tonight on $100,000, so.
Hi, Julie. She came on. Please, go ahead.
I appreciate the comments about the fire department. I know that Chief Lapierre was pleased to have his staff come back this week. These are going to be very trying times, I think, continuing with fire season. Already I would say the worst on record, and not showing any signs of slowing. And I've stayed in not daily communication, but fairly regular communication about how folks are going and doing, and appreciate the esprit de corps that the chief has continued to exhibit with his staff. Speaking of Jenny's departure, I mean, I obviously, personally, not any of us would want to see, but only appreciate all that she's done, and as a fellow driller, I can't leave that out. That appreciate all that she's done, and it's been a real pleasure to have worked with her, and it'd be hard to imagine working with anyone else, but so completely support. I have a saying, it's your family first and this place second, and so certainly I know that it's family pursuits that she's supporting, and so I'll support that as well. And it really, can I just say how much I hate COVID? As we talk about, typically we would be doing something to celebrate her next opportunity in life, and sadly we're not able to do that. And she and the directors expressed that to her on Friday, that we're going to have to ask for a do-over or a makeup or whatever it is when the time is appropriate for that. So, yeah, she did say that it may have to happen up in Lake County, though, so we might have to take her up on that. But she is leaving us on 9/11. And that's been another conversation that I had with Chief Lapierre about, what typically we do something to commemorate 9/11, and And obviously with the library fire this year, obviously that has additional meaning to the city. But I think that's another one that we'll have to ask for a do-over. How do we appropriately recognize the events of September 11th and also our folks? So I think you're going to see that virtually. You're going to see through social media posts and those sorts of things. And I know that was just a very difficult, it's a difficult thing for Chief Lapierre. It's a difficult one for Chief Crodel as well. And don't want to take that the city's not doing anything doesn't mean it any less. In fact, it's even more painful this year in spite of that. And know that it's one that, just given the current circumstances, one that we'll have to look for the next opportunity to do that. Obviously, next year will be the 20-year anniversary of that. So, stay tuned. But it also happens to be Jason Ridenhour's birthday. So
Oh
Jenny
my
leaving
gosh.
on 9/11 and Jason's birthday, which I think he turned 18 on the actual 9/11. Is that a fair? I think we had to re-celebrate his birthday because he said, his 18th birthday he didn't really get to celebrate. So I guess in the spirit of that, there are a number of do-overs. We're going to have to figure out a nice way in another date to say, wish Jenny well, and we'll have to find another way to appropriately commemorate 9/11.
Thank you very much. If there is no one else wanting to say anything, Jenny, you want to say anything?
If I could.
Absolutely.
Well, I'll try not to cry because we know that I am.
Of course.
I'm an emotional wreck.
course.
But it's been my honor to serve Porterville for the past 11 years. I love my staff. I'm so proud of our accomplishments. I publicly want to thank John. He gave me this opportunity and really guided me and supported me and was a true friend. And so I will always be grateful for that. I'm so appreciative of this council too. You guys dedicate your time and receive so much flack, and you do it for the betterment of our community. And I just truly appreciate all of your hearts for being willing to do that. I will say the face I'm going to miss, and I can't look at her, Julie Phillips and I have worked together both at the city and consulting firms for the past 15 years. She is the yin to my yang. We are complete opposites, and it's just always worked. And so I will miss that friendship the most, I think. And then Ridenhour is too much like me a little bit, and so I will miss that as well, because the two of them are really who I work with day in and day out. But this group of directors, they are all my friends and have given me such great advice and are really helpful and willing to back me. And so I will miss absolutely everybody on the screen and everybody here tonight. And yeah, so Grant and I moving on to the next adventure, and we'll see how that goes. Thank you for your well wishes. I appreciate that.
Thank you very much. Know that you are loved. And with that being said, it is 8:33. Meeting adjourned.